Cam here.
Hi, Cameron. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the room here, we have essentially Group 2 from the CANARIE strategic mandate process. I think you're, maybe via Rob, you're a little bit aware of what we're doing. From the room here, there's, if you just want to just say your name, we'll know who we're sending.
Ouais, Patrick Kilo, CFI.
Bill Kowalczyk, Sadara.
Mike Ravik with CCNA. Reflecting for Bachelor. Jim Roach with CANARIE.
Aidan Shelka, CANARIE.
Walter Stewart. Jonathan Schaefer, University of Alberta.
Benoit Carrel, University of Victoria, CANARIE.
So, Cameron, I've just distributed your report, so none of the people have had a chance to read the report as yet. So what we'd like to do is for the next 45 minutes or so, if you can walk us through the report and provide any highlights, and then what will happen is the group will ask questions as they can, but we may ask you to participate in a subsequent call once they've gone through in detail the details of the report.
Okay, sure, no problem. So I'll make some disclaiming statements first, just so aware on what the report is. And so I'll say that the report is a very high-level overview / survey of different middleware technologies and also projects that employ them. And it mainly focuses on, I guess, the efforts and projects that occur outside of Canada. Didn't really delve into what Canada's done for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't know if you were actually looking at that in some other separate work that you're doing. Number two is that, perhaps in this effort, Canada's efforts have not been, as much or significant in terms of what's being used out there. I mean, I will say there certainly are many things and groups within Canada that, are developing cyber infrastructure that in fact have contributed to some of these services that are discussed in this paper and through various projects like through the CANARIE NEP and so forth. So I mean there certainly are a Canadian presence, but I don't really look at that in this report.
That's right, Cameron. I just want to point out, just to indicate to you, we're recording this call just because there's some members of Group 2 that aren't here or they might want to listen, at one point go back and listen to this conversation.
Okay, yeah, no problem there. And so, I mean, one thing is it's certainly not a comprehensive, exhaustive survey. There's many different tools and services out there. And so it was just intended to provide a good representative sample of some of the common and well-known tools and services. And really give an indication that there is quite a bit of work out in this area. And so certainly for a more comprehensive survey or greater, I guess, evaluation or assessment of these tools and services as well would have, taken, I think, significant more time. We just tried to do the best that we could in the short time frame that we had to get this put together. And, I mean, in terms of, there's not necessarily all of the types of technologies and services are present. I mean, I will say, things like semantic web technologies, are not in here, probably because of time and trying to get that in. That's like probably one key area of upcoming technologies that I think will play a significant impact and would probably fit well into maybe the information services section of this paper. In terms of cloud computing technologies, we didn't get in too deep or really, separating out the fact that there's really, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, focused more probably on some of the infrastructure as a service areas there. And so I'll just walk through then the document and give some of the other comments I have at the end. And feel free to interject and ask questions then at any time. And so really the first section, or section 2, is focused then on actual cyber infrastructure technologies, actual middleware or service components that have been developed by different groups around the world. And so we divided these up into several categories, one being base middleware packages. And so when I talk about base middleware here, they're typically a fairly significant sized package that provides a core set of functionalities that are required, and typically that many other services and tools are built then on top of those to provide the cyber infrastructure that's required for different projects. And so here, mainly talking about things like Globus, Unicore, ARC, G-Lite, NAREGI as some of the key projects around the world that have focused on this. I mean, I will note on one Globus Toolkit. I mean, it is one that's certainly gone through a lot of different revisions and phases, and they had gone through a pre-web services, pre-standards version, and then they did adopt more the OGSA, which was the Open Grid Services architecture developed via the Grid Forum, which is now the OG, or the Global Grid Forum at the time, and now Open Grid Forum, and the Web Services Resource Framework. But Globus now seems to be kind of abandoning that and going back to enhancing more of the GT2 services, which I think were more robust and more widely used. So just seemingly a note and change on that the web service aspects of things is not quite as strong a push as it used to be. Talked about some VO management and identity management services. So here you're looking at, well, what do you need to manage a group of users to provide them access to these resources in an easy way. And through grid certificates and other tools or shibboleth and identity management systems that will enable single sign-on and things like that, so users get easy access and there's a way of managing who gets access to what.
Cameron,
yeah?
Where possible, if you can indicate basically, the communities that are using, if there's anything that's been happening in certain jurisdictions, right? So, is the European Union, for instance, settling on certain middleware, et cetera, just to provide some insight in terms of who's using what. Are there certain ones that are more mature and more generally accepted, et cetera? So I know it's not, some of that is in the report, but if you could highlight that as well.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I don't think we were able to get into as much of that aspect as you want in the report as you want, and I will certainly try, based on my experience and knowledge, to, inform some of that. And so, I mean, I guess if we go back to the middleware then, Globus Toolkit, I would say, has primarily been North American. Now, a lot of some of the tools that have been developed as part of the Globus Toolkit have been incorporated in some of the other middleware platforms that have been developed in Europe. But I would say Europe, the key ones have been Unicore and G-Lite. G-Lite, particularly as it pertains within EG and upcoming EGI, and like the Large Hadron Collider Computing Grid project has focused on G-Lite. But things like G-Lite has incorporated some of the Globus Toolkit, particularly GT2 functionality, and as later in the report indicates, with the European Middleware Initiative as part of the EGI, which has replaced EG, is that they're working on trying to integrate G-Lite, ARC, and Unicore together to create a more interoperable grid environment over there. So, I mean, Unicore, ARC, G-Lite have been more of the European initiatives. Globus Toolkit, more North American, although many of that functionality has been incorporated elsewhere. NAREGI, which was the other one I mentioned, that was a Japanese initiative, and I think they've tried to really get involved, and they've been involved on some of these international collaborations through the OGF in terms of information services and so forth, and participating in that.